Welcome to Pickup's On The Move podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. You've started a lot of well-known brands in South Africa, and I'm keen to talk more about it and really understand your journey. Vida Cafe was the first one, right? Back in 2001, we all remember the Cliff Street store, the brand. It's amazing how that, if we look at Vida Cafe today, it's the same logo, the brand is what it is, the first store is still going. What went into putting such a great brand together back in the day? Tell us more about it.
Thanks for having me, first of all. It was really about what does the coffee landscape look like in South Africa? What is it going to look like in a few years' time, and what are the opportunities? Vida was born based on that, and nothing else. Everything else was on the side, but the espresso had to be perfect, and that was the foundation of the business. We had very little food at the time. It was always about a great coffee, and the base being the espresso. And that went into everything, the logo, the simplicity of the stores, the simplicity of the training. We trained our own staff. None of them understood or knew about coffee. Coffee was really a non-event in South Africa, the coffee culture back in 2001. You had mug and bean, and that was really it. And so it was born out of that, to see what was going on in the rest of the world, grow a coffee culture, but to be as simple as possible and take that right through the business and so other people could carry it through and continue it as was. So that's the basis of it.
You said around the world, did you bring in or look at concepts in any parts of the world and get ideas from there and bring it here?
Yeah, so Rui, who's my partner currently in our current business, and Brad, in Europe, and in fact in Portugal, you have these espresso bars that are really, there's no tables and chairs. You go up, you order your bica, your coffee, and it's as simple as getting it, standing, drinking it, and moving on. There's no table service, there's no restaurant service. And so those have been around for a long time. If you go to Portugal today, you'll get a lot of these little cafes that are hit and runs, basically. And so it was an iteration out of that. And if you walked into Cliff Street, there was one counter, there was a couple of muffins on the counter, but really it was about coffee and a clean space. So that's really, it came from that.
So back then, coffee wasn't what it is today. I mean, now we go around, we see bootlegger on every corner. Did you know it would grow to what it is today?
We never did any sums or numbers saying there were going to be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 coffee places in South Africa 20 years later, or whatever it is. So it's interesting how it has developed, and the coffee culture has really blown up. And I think around the world it's done that. 20 years ago there was obviously a Starbucks and a number of chains, but it has grown exponentially around the world, the coffee culture. So I think South Africa has gone with it, and we didn't think that would happen. We never did numbers to say, okay, we're going to open X amount of stores. I think Vida right now has got 300, close to 300 stores. And when we sold the business, we had 8 or 10. So you never think that it will be that big, and when you're doing your crunching your numbers and doing your business model, it's hard to look so far ahead. So I didn't think we'd be in this position.
So the journey from the first store to 8 stores was 7-8 years, right?
It was about 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah. And we took a long time. 6 years. Guys can build store one a month at the moment. And that was on purpose. It was really to build a strong brand, strong culture, really take our time in terms of finding the right sites, which all, brought the brand to where it is today. I would think there was a real solid foundation. Took a hell of a long time to build those eight stores. So yeah, it did take a while.
Yeah, I do remember that time. I think I was chatting with you back in the day to look at a Claremont store, and it was a slow process, and rightly so. I think it developed a great your locational footprint to start with was pivotal to I think selling the business, which you ultimately did. Some of the challenges that in those first 7 years back in the day, nowadays we've got the internet. We're learning about how people scale the business quicker. Like 15 years ago, we didn't have these success stories to fall on. How did you navigate through some of those challenges, and what were some of those challenges back then?
No, if I think about it, there was no social media. There was no. I mean, how did you tell people that you're opening a new store? How did you get feet through the door? So it was really intense. We worked really hard on being in the stores all the time, which took a lot out of us. And I think that culture sticks with me today, in that I'm very involved in our businesses operationally. But a struggle. You have to really beat the drum on a daily basis to grow your business. I remember we had Tybolt Square, which was in the middle of the city, and we created a whole jazz thing around it on a Sunday morning, because there was just nobody in the city on a Sunday morning, and even today. But we really put a whole lot of effort into that. In fact, the one guy that was playing now is the lead in Goldfish. So it was we put a lot of emphasis on our staff, on training, all to bring people back on a daily basis, because there was no other technology or social media or anything else. So it was all live, and even today with OKJA, we don't even use social media. So it's kind of, we've used a lot of those learnings to do other businesses, but essentially it is easier right now with all the tech around to, I wouldn't say easy, but you can scale, I think, differently.
And it just goes to show how really strong and how focused individuals need to be in order to create successful brands, and simplicity is everything. So it's a truly great story. Vida still 300 stores. When you think back, did you ever imagine when you exited that someone would scale it to a size of 300 stores?
I don't think so. I think it was definitely a scalable business. So it was going to definitely grow, into a number of stores. 300, a lot. I don't think I would have taken it to 300 stores, because being so passionate about what happens in a store on a day-to-day basis, it's very difficult to scale like that. But we certainly knew that it would scale, because it was built to scale. So 300 stores, maybe should be 1,000. I'm not sure, but
cool.
But yeah.
And then after Vida, you moved into logistics. Mr. D, tell us more about that.
So yeah, that was a very interesting, it wasn't necessarily a pivot, but it was kind of a pivot in terms of being in food retail, and then into heavy logistics. But we saw a business that was very underutilized. It was really in trouble. Mr. Delivery, in 2009 was in deep trouble as a business. It was obviously a food delivery business. It revolved around advertising. So that was the big income was advertising. The magazine that you saw on your fridge was the biggest source of revenue. But there was this huge underlying logistics platform that was totally underutilized. So there was 20 branches scattered around South Africa. At that stage, 75% was company owned, 25% was franchised, and the business was treading water and really had a lot of debt and wasn't in a good space. What we saw was, okay, if there's this decentralized logistics opportunity, what else can we do through it other than trying to deliver pizza, which was 75% of the business at the time. And based on it being in trouble, there was in the marketplace there was an opportunity to buy a piece of it, and I wasn't doing anything after Vida for a bit of time, and saw this opportunity. Okay, well, let's get our hands dirty and see what we can do with this. Again, not knowing how it would evolve, but knowing that there's something there that we could do something with. So that's how it came about. It was all based in Johannesburg at the time. So I used to, we went up there, spent every week there for a good year before we could move stuff around. And the story kind of evolved as we went along. Was we needed to transform it into a last mile logistics business. The logo was a chef with a butler basically, and we went to Mike Abel at the time. We had just started out MC Saatchi Abel, and we wanted to rebrand. I knew him from before, and thought, yeah, it was a good opportunity. We did something with him, and at the same time, and obviously we had to lay out exactly what our thoughts of the business are, where we want to take it, what is our vision, because that's how he was going to evolve our brand into what it was, and it's changed again now, but it went into a certain brand at the time. Obviously we told him we want to become last mile logistics, deliver other things. At the same time, Kim Reed had bought Take Two, which was a small DVD delivery online business, and he also went to Mike Abel to rebrand and to take a lot. And as we were chatting about what we wanted to do, he introduced us to Kim, and that's basically how it kicked off. We were like, okay, hold on, maybe there's something to do. We can look to deliver, the parcels as you grow, and we formed a small partnership. And I actually remember that the day we first went in, it was maybe 100 square meter warehouse, and this was in late 2010, I think, in Montague Gardens, and there was just a couple of racks of DVDs and movies and CDs, etc. And we employed a guy to phone up every customer to hi, I'm here we want to deliver your parcel, can we get it to you? And we did, I think, 200 orders a week at that stage. And it just quickly ramped up, but it was very archaic. You injected an order into one of our hubs, and a truck would then take the parcel to the hub, and the hub would then, the hub and spoke model, which is exactly what's happening today. Just on a much bigger scale. And then we developed it as it grew. We developed it. We franchised all the stores, all the hubs at least, because we didn't want to run any of them. We needed people on the ground to employ drivers, to look after drivers, and that was our success. Is that somebody was looking after drivers within a hood, which is one of the biggest, toughest parts of this business is the people. And obviously you've got to layer, the technology around it. But so we decentralized the whole business, started growing it, opened up more hubs, and that's how it grew over time. Brought in other customers, and it was a 10-year, journey that took a lot out of a lot of people. It scaled, hell of a quickly. And was tough because there wasn't really technology around that you could just plug and play. You had to build technology, you had to, and that takes time, as everybody knows. So it was very much hands-on. Look, you're blind to a lot of stuff. You don't know where orders are, where drivers are. Now is a very different story. So it was a very stressful business, but also growing at a rapid rate. And I remember, you can go from X to 100X just over Black Friday, and then, there's no, you don't play a warm-up game, there's like from hero to zero or other way around. So tough, but exciting, learn things very quickly that you can't learn anywhere but being on the job.
And so from predominantly advertising business to full last mile logistics hubs, obviously with Takealot at your side and being a partner in your business at the time, you're able to scale the operation, limited technology. You had to rely on these hubs and this decentralized infrastructure that I think is a strong part of Takealot's core delivery offering today. So I would confidently say that a lot of what the effort you put into setting up the infrastructure is a big value to what the existing operation utilizes at the moment, together with its technology. How, when Takealot, when they invested, Mr. D, the focus around delivering food became less of a thing, right? And more around e-commerce. In your view, at that time, was e-commerce was obviously growing, but the concentration of delivering food was becoming less of a thing, right? How did that scale and grow over time?
So the e-commerce outpaced the food, and it wasn't because we wanted it to do that. It's just that we focused on the e-commerce because we knew that was going to, that needed to be our foundation. As well as if we had that strong foundation, the ability to deliver food, which is more time sensitive and you can only do so much within an hour, becomes an easier business to run on the back of package deliveries, where you can, for example, deliver, one person could deliver 50 packages a day, but they can only deliver 10 food orders. Now, to get somebody to come in just only to do 10 food orders is very difficult economically, and versus somebody that's really got a whole lot of packages to deliver, and then the food orders are going on top. So it was strategically done. Number one. Number two, we didn't have the technology, the food technology side yet, to be able to scale the food. So the food was very archaic still. It was, order came in, you had to phone the restaurant. This whole loop that's currently in play, the digitized loop, wasn't in play. And so it was, we just focused on what we could focus on to underpin the food side, which we had a view could scale up quite quickly down the line once the technology was in, which happened. Guys got involved in the business that could change that offering. We obviously needed more people with the right know-how to come and do it. And then food started to really scale. I mean, food is now a very busy part of the business, certainly when I left, but even more so now. But the package business really underpinned that because it gave a foundation to, as I said earlier, bring drivers and resources in to be able to do the food side.
And Takealot, as doing all of your work for Takealot, how did your working for a corporate, what was it like being so entrepreneurial in starting businesses to now working with a corporate? What did that feel like for you?
It was tough. It was, a lot of controls came in over time. It started off very entrepreneurial. So I would say for the first few years, we did. What happened was, I can't remember the exact date or year, but Takealot merged with Kalahari. Kalahari was owned by Naspers, and at the same time, Superblis came into the fold, and Mr. Delivery merged in. So it became one business, with Naspers being a big shareholder, and obviously being a listed company, there's certain controls that had to come in. And that's when the dynamics started to change in terms of being corporate, rightly so. It became a big business. A lot of money, came into it in terms of investment to grow it from all sides. It became difficult as an entrepreneur to budgets, instead of concentrating on entrepreneurial things, you worrying about next year's budgets, where normally you think about it in a few months' time. So it became very, very tough, certainly for me, and I think that's eventually one of the reasons why I exited the business, because it did become a very corporate animal, and it had to go that route. And I like to operate and touch and feel, and instead of sitting behind a computer and punching numbers out or those kind of things. Yes. So it did take its toll, but it's a beast now, and it's due to all those processes, that corporate process that it came in. It is where it is today. So it had to happen.
So you exited around 2017, and that was 2 years before COVID. Around that time, 2017, we saw Uber Eats come into the market. At that time, the focus for Mr. D and Takealot was e-commerce. How quickly did that shift move towards food after Uber Eats came into the mix? And what was needed to be done from a tech perspective in order to not lose market share in that space, having started it, having driven it from the beginning?
Yeah. So I think it was 2016 that we built, initially the food app was built and layered over the historic system, which gained traction quite quickly because the speed of the transaction and the actual order basically halved. And there was a whole team that came in just to focus on that, and that quickly gained traction. And the fact that we had all these hubs already running food, to just power it slightly ahead with the new Mr. D app, and take out all the broken telephone basically that was underneath it, gave it a big spark. So it caught a light quite quickly. The food side started to ramp up nicely. Obviously, we didn't roll out everything all at once, one hub at a time. But then we had quite a nice reach. Uber Eats came in, they concentrated in the cities. They didn't have the reach that we had based on the history and what we were doing in the e-commerce side. And we were doing a bit of food in all the hubs. So we were able to quickly gain traction, meet them head on in terms of their technology, which was already kind of built, and we had a big reach. So it was quite quick. Obviously, COVID, nobody knew COVID was coming, but that obviously ramped it up even more, and has changed the landscape even more over the last few years. But the Mr. D app really changed the food side of things. It scaled it quite quickly.
So that space, as we know it now, it's called a QSR, quick service restaurant space. Mr. D, Uber Eats provide a lot of volume to restaurants. They take big commissions. What is the ultimate goal for these big restaurant groups that are held to how Mr. D and Uber Eats operate? They own the customers. Should they not be thinking about building their own applications, managing their own deliveries in order to sort of own the customer? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I actually remember having this conversation slightly with you when I came to see you after I exited, and I said, I'm sure things are going to change, and restaurants need to go on their own at some stage and use companies like yours, I would think, to do it. But certainly now, I think it's becoming even more tougher, but there's two sides to the coin. There's the one side, which is your margins. So restaurant margins are going thinner and thinner and thinner. Food costs are going up, energy is going up, everything to run your business is going up. And so to do that and then pay a commission on delivery, not much left. The bigger groups are more powerful because they can negotiate their commissions. So I think they're in a better position than a single store who don't have much leg to room to move. And also the bigger guys have budget to advertise, and I think that's where Uber Eats and Mr. D really are good in terms of connecting in with them. It's an advertising platform at the same time. You can switch your business on, you can get revenue if your product stacks up in a very short space of time. So they do provide that, which is very hard to do as a one-off restaurant or even a two-off restaurant. A lot goes into getting an order, facilitating an order, the trust from a customer, having another app on their phone, where you can go to one app and order from, various places, not all at once, but obviously one at a time. So there's all those factors that come into being. But if you can get it right, and you can, there are apps that you can get off the shelf, that you can white label, and you can plug into a delivery system. And if you've got a following, much easily done. But there are certainly benefits being with Uber Eats and Mr. D based on, don't need a driver. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about the tech. You don't have to worry about anything like that. You don't have to worry to advertise, and your revenue starts to come in. So if your margins are right, it works, but it's getting much more difficult to eke out a bottom line based on, as I was saying, increased costs, because that's going through the roof, and you can't always pass it on to a customer. So I think it's getting far tougher. I think there is space for guys to go on their own and not be reliant on that commission. But when you weigh up both sides of the coin, you've got to look at it quite carefully before you delve into doing it yourself, because that could take a lot of time, energy, costs, where that's all provided with these with Mr. D.
And we see the likes of a Bolt coming into this food space as well. So I guess the smaller guys, smaller restaurants out there, it's a positive for them, because they don't have to build the infrastructure, build tech, or manage it from that perspective. But certainly the bigger guys are going to want to own those customers, own the data, and really understand their purchasing power. So
yeah, and they've got the power to do it. A lot of the guys are doing it. KFC, McDonald's, all these big guys are doing it. They've got multi-channels running. So, if they probably look at their margins across all, it probably works out, and they've got, they can do emergence of everybody versus, ditching one of them. So yes. I think that's what's also happening, is they're doing their own plus linked up with Mr. D and Uber Eats.
You left Mr. D Takealot around 2017.
End of 2017, yeah. What
was next? Did you have plans? Obviously, coming out of a corporate, it takes its toll. You've got to reignite the entrepreneurial energy. Did you have plans to start something new? What was it like for David back in 2017?
I first needed to detox, so I needed to take some time out, and it was the 10 years was, or close to 10 years was really hard. So I did take time out. I knew I had to do something again. I knew I wanted to do something again. I knew I wanted to start another business, and start something from scratch. Mr. D, we had bought an existing business, and I really wanted to start something off the bat, a brand off the bat. I linked up with Rui again, partner in Vida. He had gone off and done An Union Beer at the time when I was at Mr. D. And we were chatting right through that whole process to do something again at some stage, and we didn't know when. And we actually had exited our businesses at a similar time. So we kept on chatting, and it was, what does this world look like? Where is the world going to? We understand food, we understand logistics, we understand retail. How can we put all that together and see and try to do something again? And that's when OKJA was born. It was in 2019, mid 2019. We thought, what does the food space look like? What does it look like in 10, 20 years time? It needed to be something in the plant-based space for sure, something clean label, Customers are very, starting to become very wary of what they're putting in their body. And possibly a dual of all three. So a bit of retail, FMCG, and underpinned by logistics, because all those kind of things are underpinned by logistics. So, and that's how it came about. We started with our oat milk as something that we could really get going with, a fast-moving good, something that can underpin again other products that we wanted to bring on board, and certainly that's something that we'll continue doing. And be a brand that is that can talk to the world and not necessarily just a South African business. Although we've launched it in South Africa, and it's been a great testing ground for us. We launched in COVID, so we couldn't really do much. Beginning of 2020 was our first order that went out. COVID hit a couple of months later. So it was a really tough time, but again, the whole logistics side of things, like how do we operate this business without being able to leave our rooms, basically. Rui was based in Portugal, I was in Cape Town, and we operated the business, and for 3 years, basically for 2 years or 2.5 years, we hadn't even seen each other. We all did it remotely, and we had to use our skills to do that. So it's been a hell of a learning curve to try and launch a food brand in this environment, basically from a desk in your house.
Yeah.
It has been an interesting journey. So, but that's how it came about. It was like, what does it look like in the future? What are our skills? How can we put it all together and try and wrap it around?
It's pretty remarkable, I think. If you factor COVID into the mix, 2020, using all your experience in Vita Cafe, Mr. D, logistics, distribution, in that short time, you've built a business that's very strong. It's got a very strong retail presence. You go into Discount Clicks. Pretty much going to most stores, and I see the brand. You've got a strong direct-to-consumer offering as well. How important was, aside from the putting the brand together, which is phenomenal and looks great, how important was the logistics side in terms of using that experience to really get distribution? To get a good presence out in the market? How important was that? Look,
very important in terms of getting a fast-moving good to a consumer as quickly as possible, and being visible, and being accessible. But so I recall, as we were launching the business a couple of months before, we had started manufacturing, and we were like, right, now we've got to sell this stuff. And the first thing I said was, right, we're in South Africa. We actually wanted to launch in Europe, to be honest. But due to COVID, obviously I couldn't move anywhere. In fact, I went to London, supposed to meet Rui there, and I got there. His flights were blocked. I had to leave in 2 days' time, and we're like, shit, what are we going to do? So the first thing was, let's make sure everybody can get it if they want it, and Takealot was the option. It's a national logistics and sales offering. So the first place that we were on, we listed on Takealot. So from day one, if somebody wanted the product, go to Takealot. We couldn't own the customer, but that's fine. But at least we could get, if somebody wanted it, they could click a button, get it delivered within a couple of days anywhere in the country. And that was really a great start for us, because we could launch a national brand basically from our desks, and not have to deal with any major retailer when it comes to rebates and buying and all that, which takes a long time, and that's just historically how retailers have done it. Where Takealot, we could plug and play. So that's what we did. Takealot today is 25% of our business. Guys buying 6-packs, 12-packs, 3-packs, of our products. So it's all in big format. on a daily basis, and it's because we made it accessible from the start of a platform that was pretty much easy to use. And then after that, we started to look at independence, or at the same time, independence. So we went door to door, if however we could, stock our products. And only about 18 months down the line did we get national listing with Pick n Pay, which was our first national listing. And we are still busy with some of the retailers to get listings now because it takes time. But we had a lot of single doors that we went into, and that just took a lot of legwork and a lot of effort. And basically I broke down South Africa pretty much how I'd done with Mr. D. Broke it down into sections and used franchisees basically to start selling our product, getting it in, housing it in a small warehouse and making it accessible. So that was very much a learning what we did with Mr. Delivery in terms of breaking down hubs, making sure we were close to consumers. And then you do the same thing and do the hub and spoke into these areas and get products into a lot of doors. So right from Knysna up to Plet to St. Francis Bay, Durban, we were in those doors quite quickly, which gave us this national distribution. Basically built from ourselves. So we don't use a national distributor. We do it ourselves. We don't own any of it. Again, similar to the Mr. D model where we didn't own any of the hubs that were franchised. Although we had a franchise agreement, I don't have any those kind of agreements, but guys operate in areas selling our product, and we've got a central control admin that basically governs it all. So pretty use that knowledge and that style to launch this brand relatively quickly in South Africa.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy. I mean, in 2.5, call it 3 years, you've got this massive retail presence, direct to consumer. I think you've got retail stores in Cape Town, right?
Yeah. So we wanted, we've got this knowledge of having Vida and that, and we really wanted to be close to the consumer as well. So test our products, taste our products, interact with us, and so we've got a cafe in Camps Bay and one in Kloof Street, where customers can come in, buy products, taste our products, get a coffee, and it's like a real live tasting marketing opportunity, and it's really proven brilliant for us as well. So that knowledge is easy for us because we've got the history to be able to lay those down, and our product now lives, our brand lives into consumers. So it's really proven well, and that's a model that we will take into a new territory as well. We kind of carbon copy pretty much what we've done here, base it out of retail, cafes, bakery. We've got a bakery now in Kloof Street where we produce all our own products now for the cafes, so which is a big talking point. Again, adds to the brand. Again, it's all plant-based. People don't even know it's plant-based, and that for us is critical. We want to be products that people love, irrespective that it's vegan, plant-based or not. It's just a delicious product, and we want that to be underpinning our food brand.
Going back to that, getting this business set up and getting so much traction in such a short space of time. So many people have got aspirations to start businesses. They do, but they don't quite do it. It's not a thing to do it in such a short space of time. What are the 3 most important things that you would advise anyone to focus on if they wanting to start their own brand?
I think firstly you got to be passionate about it. I mean, there's no ways that you're going to run a business or start a business if you're not passionate about what it is. You don't have to be vegan to start a vegan brand, but you have to be passionate about what the outcome is, what this thing looks like in 10 years time beyond you, what it means to other people. So that passion for the brand and the product line is core. You've got to be resilient. If you don't have resilience, whether it's your third business, fifth business, 10th business, or first business, if you don't have it, if you can't knock down doors or get a door shut in your face, or have a lot of disappointments on a daily basis, then you're not cut out to start a business and grow it, because it happens every single day, and you can go from highs to lows within an hour, as you know. So that's certainly a very big part. And thirdly, you can't do it all your own, in my view. I really believe that if you partner with people that can do things better than you in certain parts of the business, you've got to do that, because there's very few people, I think, that can do everything and be successful without having a team around you.
Okay. Some people pronounce it differently. What are the various ways that people pronounce it?
Yeah, there's a few ways actually. You probably heard me saying it a different way earlier. So it started as OKJA. It's actually off a movie, a Netflix movie. We took the name and registered it. It's about a super pig. It's about the industrial meat industry, and basically, you watch it. It's a great movie on Netflix, and really being a plant-based business. It fits it perfectly in terms of the name. It means nothing. And we registered the name, and then we started putting it on packaging, and then we split out the letters, and suddenly we looked at it and it was like, people are going to say OKJA if it's in South Africa, so now what? Anyway, so by default it's become OKJA for a lot of people, and a lot of people say OKJA. So pronounce it how you want, but it started off like that, and it's actually become a nice play on the brand. So it's a big talking point, and people ask me all the time, so how you pronounce it, and it's kind of given the same answer, because you can pronounce it how you want. But yeah, by default, but it started based on the movie.
David, you spoke earlier about taking OKJA internationally. Is that on the cards?
Yeah, definitely. We're working on it currently. We always wanted to be overseas, Europe being probably the first port of call. We have experience there. Rui's got experience there. I've done, obviously nationally in South Africa, and it's like, as I was saying to somebody else, playing for the Stormers your whole life, it's time to play for the Springboks. So it's time to take the next step. We're currently working on it. And hopefully soon we can launch. We'll model it based on very much what we've done in South Africa, and hopefully we can be successful there.
To wrap up, I think South Africa, starting a business in South Africa, understanding your product, the territory, what would you say is pivotal to someone understanding logistics? How important is logistics in the overall equation of someone starting an e-commerce business or a product business like yours?
I think logistics underpins everything. I go back to what you said about Mr. D and Take A Lot. Mr. D within Take A Lot was probably one of the defining moments of what made Take A Lot as strong as it is today. The logistics, the logistics underneath it really took Take A Lot, and it will take a lot further. And a product business, e-commerce business, logistics underpins everything, and a good logistics platform with visibility, I think is absolutely critical. There's no way around it.
David, thanks very much for coming today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about your story and your journey, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to learn from what you've done and achieved. And good luck on your international expansion plans. And we look forward to talking more about international logistics one day when you've taken your product worldwide. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. Brilliant.